The music at Mama Bose's Chill Spot, the most popular open-air lounge in the town of Obalende, was usually loud and happy. It was a Friday night, and the air smelled of grilled spicy soya meat and sweet perfume. People were laughing, tapping on their smartphones, and dancing near their tables. But suddenly, the music seemed to die down. The laughter stopped. It felt like the whole world pressed the mute button. All eyes turned toward the entrance. Standing there was Adanna. She looked stunning, dressed in her best bright yellow Ankara fabric pattern with electric blue peacock feathers. Her head wrap was tied high and proud, almost touching the top of the doorframe. But it wasn't her dress that made everyone quiet, it was the look in her eyes. They were focused like lasers on one specific table in the corner. At that table sat Chidi, Adanna's husband. He was leaning in very close to a young woman in a sparkly red dress, whispering something that was making her giggle loudly. Chidi was wearing his favorite blue shirt, the one Adanna had ironed for him just that morning. When Chidi saw his wife standing there, he froze. His eyes went wide like saucers. He quickly pulled back from the woman in red, looking like a child caught stealing candy. The whole restaurant held its breath. Everyone in Obalende knew Adanna was a strong woman. Was she going to scream? Was she going to flip the table over? Was she going to drag Chidi out by his ear? No one expected what Adanna did next. It was the moment that people in the town would talk about for years. She didn't yell. She walked calmly past their table, ignoring Chidi's terrified squeak of "Honey, wait." She walked straight to the small stage where the live band was taking a break. Adanna gently took the microphone from its stand. The speakers let out a sharp squeak that made everyone jump. "Excuse me, everyone," Adanna's voice rang out clear and calm over the speakers. It echoed through the quiet night air. "I am so sorry to interrupt your fun. My name is Adanna, and I have a very special, very surprising announcement to make about my amazing husband, Chidi, who is sitting right over there." She pointed a perfectly manicured finger toward the corner table. The silence in the lounge was heavy. You could hear a pin drop. Chidi looked like he wanted the concrete floor to open up and swallow him whole. The woman in red just looked confused, blinking her false eyelashes rapidly. To understand why this moment was so shocking, you have to understand Adanna and Chidi. They were the couple everyone admired. They had been married for 10 years and lived in a nice yellow house near the market. Adanna owned the best bakery in town, her meat pies were famous for being soft and flaky. Chidi worked at the big bank in the city center. He was handsome, always smiling, and dressed in sharp suits. They seemed perfect. But for the last few weeks, the perfection had cracks in it. Chidi had been coming home late. "Extra work at the bank, my dear," he would say, kissing Adanna quickly on the forehead before checking his phone. He was always guarding his phone, taking it into the bathroom with him, and smiling at the screen when he thought Adanna wasn't looking. Adanna wanted to trust him. In her heart, she didn't want to believe the whispers she sometimes heard at the market. But that very afternoon, the truth had slapped her in the face. Chidi had jumped in the shower after coming home to change clothes. He left his phone on the bedside table charging. It buzzed loudly against the wood. Adanna usually respected his privacy, but today, a strange feeling in her stomach made her look. The message on the bright screen was short. It was from a contact saved as Ngozi the Diva. It said, "Can't wait for tonight at Mama Bose's. You better wear that blue shirt I like." Winky face. Adanna had felt like the ground disappeared beneath her feet. The room felt suddenly cold. She sat on the edge of the bed, her heart pounding like a heavy drum against her ribs. All her hard work, all her love, felt wasted in that second. Hot tears stung her eyes, threatening to fall. But then, she heard the shower turn off. Adanna quickly put the phone back. She looked at herself in the mirror. "No," she whispered fiercely to her reflection. "I am Adanna. I am not a victim. I will not cry in the corner while he laughs. A plan began to form in her mind. It wasn't a plan for revenge, it was something different. It was a plan her grandmother might have used in the old village stories, where cleverness was stronger than anger. After Chidi left the house, smelling of too much cologne and wearing the blue shirt, Adanna didn't sit and cry. She went to her closet. She pulled out her best yellow dress. She took her time tying her head wrap until it was perfect. She put on her gold earrings and looked at herself one last time. She looked like a queen going to battle, but her weapons were dignity and surprise. She called a taxi and told the driver, "Mama Bose's chill spot, please. And drive fast." Which brought her back to this moment, standing on the stage with the microphone in her hand, the bright lights shining on her face. The whole lounge was staring at her, waiting. Adanna took a deep breath. She smiled, but it was a sad smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Everybody," she spoke into the mic again, her voice steady but loud. "I want us all to give a big round of applause for that young lady over there in the red dress, Miss Ngozi." The crowd murmured, confused. Why was the wife clapping for the other woman? Adanna continued, "I want to thank her publicly for keeping my husband company when he is apparently too busy for his own wife. It is very kind of her." Chidi's jaw dropped almost to the table. Ngozi looked around nervously, realizing this wasn't a good kind of attention. In fact, Adanna raised her voice slightly, "I am so grateful for her kindness that I want to celebrate their new friendship right now. First round of drinks for everyone in the whole restaurant is on me. Put it on Adanna's tab." A gasp went through the crowd, followed by nervous laughter and a few cheers from people happy about free drinks. Chidi looked sick. But Adanna wasn't finished. The smile vanished from her face. She looked directly at Chidi, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Her voice shook just a little bit, showing the deep hurt underneath her calm act. "And Chidi," she said, her voice echoing dramatically. "Since you love being here with your new friend so much, I have made it easy for you. I packed your 2 biggest suitcases. They are waiting for you in the taxi outside right now. The driver is paid to take you wherever you want to go, because you are not coming home to my house tonight." She dropped the microphone. It hit the stage with a loud boom that made everyone jump. Adanna turned and walked off the stage toward the exit, her head held high, leaving a stunned silence behind her. The silence that Adanna left behind at Mama Bose's chill spot did not last long. As soon as her yellow dress disappeared through the exit, the restaurant exploded with noise. Everyone began whispering at once. Phones were raised in the air, recording the aftermath. The video of Adanna's speech was already flying across WhatsApp groups all over the town. Chidi sat frozen in his chair. He felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over his head. He looked at Ngozi, the woman in the red dress. He hoped for a kind word or a reassuring smile. Instead, Ngozi stood up sharply. She smoothed down her sparkly dress and picked up her expensive handbag. She looked at Chidi not with love, but with annoyance. "Chidi," she said, her voice cold. "You told me your wife was boring and didn't understand you. You didn't tell me she was a lioness who could buy out the whole bar." "Ngozi, please, let me explain," Chidi stammered, reaching for her hand. She pulled her hand away as if he were made of fire. "Don't touch me. I cannot be seen with a man whose clothes are in a taxi. It is not a good look for my brand." With a toss of her long braids, she turned and walked away, her heels clicking loudly on the concrete floor. Chidi was alone. Well, not entirely alone. A waiter approached the table, looking nervous. He held a small piece of paper. "Excuse me, sir," the waiter said softly. "Madam Adanna said the drinks for everyone are on her tab, but she blocked the joint bank card 5 minutes ago. The machine declined it." The waiter pointed to the screen. "You will have to pay for the celebration round yourself." Chidi groaned and put his head in his hands. It was going to be a very expensive night. Meanwhile, the taxi carrying Adanna had arrived at their yellow house. The moment she unlocked the front door and stepped into the cool, quiet living room, the strength left her legs. She slid down against the door until she was sitting on the floor. The brave, strong woman who had spoken on the microphone vanished. In her place was a heartbroken wife. Adanna pulled her knees to her chest and let the tears come. She cried for the trust that was broken. She cried for the embarrassment. She cried because, despite everything, she still loved the fool. About 20 minutes later, there was a frantic knocking on the door. Adanna. Adanna, open up. It's Bola. Adanna wiped her face and opened the door. Bola was her best friend since primary school. Bola rushed in, wearing her pajamas with a wrapper tied over them, holding a big plastic cooler. I saw the video on Facebook, Bola said, breathless. You are trending, my friend. Wife of the year, they are calling you. But I knew you would be crying, so I brought pepper soup. Bola led Adanna to the sofa and served the hot, spicy soup. The smell of the spices and the warmth of the soup made Adanna feel a little more human. Did I go too far, Bola? Adanna asked, her voice raspy. I embarrassed him in front of the whole world. Bola shook her head. He embarrassed himself, Adanna. He took another woman to your favorite spot on a Friday night. You just held up a mirror so he could see himself. But the question is, what happens now? That was exactly the question Chidi was asking himself. He was sitting in the back of the taxi that Adanna had hired. His two big suitcases were jammed in the trunk. The driver, an older man with grey hair named Bobatond, was looking at him through the rearview mirror with pity. Oga, Bobatond said. Where are we going? I cannot drive around Obalende all night. Fuel is expensive. Chidi checked his phone. He had 10 missed calls from his mother, which he was too scared to answer. He dialed his best friend, Emeka. Emeka always had his back. Emeka, my guy, Chidi said when the line connected. I'm in a mess. Can I crash on your couch tonight? There was a pause. Then Emeka whispered, Chidi, are you mad? My wife, Grace, has already seen the video. She is currently on the phone with Adanna sending her hugs and prayers. If I let you into this house, Grace will pack my bags too. You are on your own tonight, brother. The line went dead. Chidi felt a cold knot of fear in his stomach. The hotels were expensive, and after paying that huge bill at the lounge, his personal account was almost empty. He had nowhere to go. Oga, the driver said impatiently. Take me to my mother's house, Chidi whispered. It was the only place left. His mother, Mama Chidi, was a strict woman who went to church 4 times a week. She did not tolerate nonsense. Going there was like walking into a lion's den, but at least it was a roof over his head. The drive seemed to take forever. The streetlights flickered as they drove through the quiet neighborhoods. Finally, they pulled up to the green metal gates of his childhood home. Chidi paid the driver with his last bit of cash and dragged his heavy suitcases out. The taxi drove away, leaving him standing in the dark. He walked to the gate and knocked. Mama. It's Chidi. No answer. He knocked louder. Mama, please. It's me. I have nowhere to go. The small viewing window in the gate slid open. But it wasn't his mother's face he saw. It was the face of the house help, a young girl named Kemi. Uncle Chidi, she whispered. Mama said I should not open the gate for any wayward children tonight. Kemi, open this gate. Chidi begged. I am her son. She said to tell you that her son is a responsible man who respects his wife, Kemi recited, looking fearful. She said the man standing outside with luggage is a stranger to her. The window slammed shut. The lock clicked. Chidi sat on his suitcase on the dusty side of the road. Mosquitoes began to buzz around his ears. He couldn't believe it. His wife had kicked him out, his girlfriend had dumped him, his best friend had rejected him, and his own mother had locked him out. He put his head in his hands, finally understanding the weight of what he had done. The silence of the night was heavy. Suddenly, his phone rang. It wasn't his mother. It wasn't Adanna. It was a number he didn't recognize. He picked it up slowly. "Hello. Is this Mr. Chidi Okeke?" a deep, serious voice asked. "Yes, this is he. This is Officer Dunlody from the Central Police Station," the voice said. "We have received a report regarding a vehicle registered in your name. We need you to come to the station immediately. It is an emergency." Chidi's heart stopped. "My car. But my car is parked at my house. Adanna has the keys." "Not anymore, sir," the officer said grimly. "There has been an accident. You need to come now." Chidi dropped the phone. The screen cracked against the pavement. He looked toward the road, panic rising in his chest like a flood. An accident. Adanna. Had something happened to Adanna because of him? He scrambled to grab his suitcases, but then he realized he couldn't take them. He abandoned his bags by his mother's gate and began to run into the dark night, his fancy shoes slapping against the asphalt, terrified of what he would find at the station. Chidi ran until his lungs burned like fire. He didn't care about his expensive Italian shoes slapping against the dirty road. He didn't care that his shirt was soaked with sweat. All he could think about was the twisted metal of a car and the possibility that Adanna was inside it. When he burst through the double doors of the Central Police Station, he looked like a madman. The station was bright with fluorescent lights and smelled of old paper and dust. "Officer," Chidi gasped, leaning on the high wooden counter. "My wife. Is she okay? Where is she?" Officer Dunlody, a large man with a thick mustache, looked up from his ledger. He adjusted his glasses slowly. "Mr. Okeke." "Yes. The car accident. Who was driving?" Chidi shouted, his voice cracking. Before the officer could answer, a door opened to the side. Chidi froze. Walking out of the office was Adanna. She was still wearing her yellow dress, though she looked tired. She held a bottle of water in her hand. She was not hurt. There was not a single scratch on her. "Adanna," Chidi whispered, his knees shaking with relief. He wanted to run and hug her, but the look on her face stopped him. It was a look of deep disappointment mixed with pity. "She is fine, Mr. Okeke," Officer Dunlody explained, coming around the counter. "Your wife was not in the car." "Then, who?" Chidi asked, confused. "Come," the officer said. He led them to the back window that looked out over the station's impound lot. There, under the yellow street lamp, was Chidi's beloved car. The silver sedan he washed every Saturday morning was crushed like a soda can. The front hood was smashed in, and the windshield was shattered. "A young boy from the neighborhood," the officer said, shaking his head. "He saw your gate left open when the taxi picked up your suitcases. He saw the spare key you foolishly keep in the glove box. He took the car for a joyride and crashed it into a pure water truck 2 streets away. He is in the holding cell now with minor injuries." Chidi stared at the wreck. That car was his pride. It was the first big thing he bought when he got his promotion. But as he looked at the twisted metal, he realized something strange. He didn't feel angry about the car. He felt only one thing, gratitude that Adanna wasn't in it. He turned to his wife. For the first time all night, he really saw her. He saw the woman who had built a life with him from nothing. He saw the woman who had ironed the shirt he was wearing to cheat on her. "I thought you were dead," Chidi said, his voice trembling. Tears finally spilled down his cheeks. When the officer called, I thought I had lost you forever. Adanna looked at him. She saw a man stripped of everything. His fancy car was gone. His girlfriend had left him. His mother had locked him out. His friends had turned their backs. He was standing in a police station with no money and no pride. You lost me before tonight, Chidi, Adanna said softly. Her voice was sad but firm. You lost me when you started sharing your smiles with a phone screen instead of me. You lost me when you thought our vows were just words. Chidi dropped to his knees right there on the dirty station floor. He didn't care who was watching. I am so sorry, Adanna. I have been a fool. A stupid, blind fool. I have nothing left. Please. Just tell me what to do. The station was quiet. The officer looked away to give them privacy. Adanna sighed, a long, deep sound. In the old stories, this is the part where the lion eats the foolish goat, or the tortoise gets a cracked shell that never heals. But this was a story about marriage, and marriage is complicated. Get up, Chidi, Adanna said. She reached out a hand. He took it and stood up, looking at her with hope. Can I come home? Adanna withdrew her hand. You can come home because I will not leave my husband sleeping on the street like a stray dog. But you will not sleep in my room. You will sleep in the guest room. Chidi nodded vigorously. Yes. Anywhere. The floor is fine. And, Adanna continued, her eyes sharp, you will work for it. You will regain the trust of my family. You will apologize to your mother. And every day, you will have to prove that you are the man I married, not the stranger you became. I will, Chidi promised. I will do anything. They left the station together, but they did not hold hands. They walked side by side, with a distance between them that Chidi knew he would have to bridge, step by step, day by day. The next morning, the sun rose over Obalende just like it always did. The market opened, the buses honked, and life went on. But things were different in the yellow house. Chidi didn't go to the lounge that Friday, or the Friday after that. In fact, Mama Bose's chill spot didn't see him for a very long time. Instead, the town saw a new Chidi. They saw him carrying flour sacks into Adanna's bakery on Saturday mornings, sweating and working hard. They saw him sitting in the front row of the church with his mother, singing louder than everyone else. They saw him walking with Adanna in the evenings, not looking at his phone, but listening, really listening, to what she was saying. It wasn't easy. There were days Adanna was cold to him. There were days the neighbors whispered and laughed as he walked by. The video of Adanna on the microphone stayed on the internet forever, a permanent reminder of his mistake. But slowly, very slowly, the ice began to melt. One evening, 6 months later, Adanna and Chidi were sitting on their porch. The air smelled of rain and jasmine. You know, Adanna said, looking at the stars. Bola told me that Ngozi found a new boyfriend. A politician in Abuja. Chidi didn't even flinch. He peeled an orange and handed a slice to Adanna. Good for her. I hope he likes red dresses. Adanna took the orange and smiled. It was a small smile, but it reached her eyes this time. The car insurance money finally came, she said. I don't want another fancy car, Chidi said immediately. We should use the money to buy that new industrial oven you wanted for the bakery. The one that can bake 50 loaves at once. Adanna looked at him in surprise. That is a lot of money, Chidi. That was your car. It was just metal, Chidi said quietly. He looked at his wife, truly looked at her. It took a crash for me to realize that the most valuable thing I own isn't parked in the driveway. It's sitting right next to me. Adanna chewed the orange slice slowly. She didn't say anything, but she leaned her shoulder gently against his. The shock of what Adanna did that night at the lounge never really left the town of Obalende. It became a legend. Women used it to warn their husbands, "Be careful, or I will pull an Adanna on you." But for Chidi and Adanna, the shock was exactly what they needed. It broke their world apart so they could build it back together, stronger and truer than before. And as the elders say, when a bone breaks and heals, it becomes stronger at the broken place.